Hello, Life Groups. Welcome back. We're continuing in our Samson series. And if you were with us last week, we talked about how Samson, even with his strength and everything that he possessed, he was still impulsive and self-gratifying. He chooses his wife from the Philistines, who is the known enemy of Israel, and he didn't adhere to the Nazirite vow he had taken. He challenges the wedding attendants with a riddle and all these different things. And when we left the story last week, Samson had just lost the bet and now owes 30 men some clothes. So at the end of Judges 14, Samson goes to make good on his wager. And scripture tells us that the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson, and he goes to Ashkelon and kills 30 men, takes their belongings and gives their clothes to the men who solved his riddle. Now, to top that, Samson's wife had then been given to one of his companions who was at his wedding reception. And at the start of Judges 15, this story just goes bananas, right? Samson tries to visit his wife, but her father wouldn't allow him to go in. And so instead of being level-headed about all of this, Samson goes and catches 300 foxes, ties them together, sets them on fire, and releases them into the fields and vineyards of the Philistines. Now, as you might imagine, in retaliation, the Philistines then kill Samson's wife and her father. Samson then retaliates and kills a bunch of Philistines. It's this cyclical revenge and retaliation. And finally, enough was enough. Samson was approached by his fellow Hebrews, and they agreed to hand Samson over to the Philistines for his punishment. And the only thing that Samson requested is that his fellow Hebrews didn't kill him. So they tied his hands and took him to the Philistines, but as they approached, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson again, and he broke the ropes tying his hands, and he sees a fresh jawbone from a donkey laying on the ground. Again, the Nazirite vow of not touching anything dead just apparently didn't apply to Samson, and he kills 1,000 Philistines with this donkey's jawbone. And then right after this is the first time that we see Samson talk to God. But it wasn't him being appreciative of his strength. It wasn't Samson thanking God for the victory, but it was him complaining that he had nothing to drink. Again, he was more concerned with his self-preservation, the self-gratifying nature of his request. And even in the midst of Samson's selfishness, God continues to use him. Because throughout history and throughout Scripture, God has used imperfect people to fulfill His plan. I think that's what I find so appealing about Scripture, is that if God can use imperfect people in Scripture, He can use me as well. Now we see that Samson was set on revenge and not to honor God. Revenge was his sole focus this entire chapter, and Samson handles some things the way that I think we do in our world today. Someone wrongs us, or someone hurts us, someone offends us, and we feel like we have to make them pay. We have to make them suffer, make them feel as much pain, if not more, than what we do currently. But revenge flies directly in the face of what Jesus says about forgiveness. Even in Romans chapter 12, it tells us to not repay anyone evil for evil. And then it continues on by saying, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. But as we've come to learn, as we talk about often, it's one thing to hear verses like this, but it's a completely other thing to apply them to our daily lives and to live by them. So that is our challenge for you this week. Enjoy your discussion today.